Dear guests, dear seminar speakers and participants, both here in the venue, and online, warmly welcome to Food and Forest Development Finland FFD 10th year anniversary seminar. My name is Jenny Öhman and I am agriculture and gender expert at FFD and work as coordinator now for the seminar. And I will give you some practical details before we start. So the seminar program is found on your seat. And as you can see, we have a fully packed program today. So therefore, there will be a possibility to comment and ask questions after the panel discussion only. So the seminar is being recorded and we have a photographer taking pictures. And these materials will be used in FFD's communication material later on. I hope this is all fine for you. Coffee and tea will be available throughout the seminar, so you can go and grab more and take it with you here. And now, for the welcoming words, please welcome the President of the Central Union of Agricultural Producers and Forest Owners, MTK, and FFD, Juha Marttila.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues, it's a great pleasure and honor to be here with you today to celebrate on the 10 years of FFD's impressive work for a better and fairer world. I thank very much our partners in different parts of the world. Thanks to our excellent experts who have done valuable work in various roles. We see that rural livelihoods are in the middle of turbulence. Producers are expected to produce more efficiently, responsibly, climate and environmentally friendly, but the economic conditions leave us very little space for introducing changes in our practices. Climate change is already forcing us to adapt. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has increased input prices, and the terrible events in Israel and Palestine have similar effects. But we are here not to complain, but to reflect together how we farmers can respond to these challenges together. The message to the rest of the society is no farms, no food, no future. In Finland and in the EU, there's always some hope that public sector helps in some problems, but our colleagues in South have less possibilities of requesting their government's support. A lot depends on producers' possibilities to adapt, learn and innovate. For these farmers need support they need and we in FFD believe strongly that farmers' own organizations are the best for this support, from farmers to farmers. All farmers and forest owners are dependent on natural resources, and it is the deepest will to take good care of nature. Nature is our partner, now and forever. Similarly, we work for our families, children and grandchildren. We think across generations. Dear friends, this seminar is part of FFD's 10th anniversary celebration, but this is also a part of World Food Day celebration. As individual farmer is an important part of any food system, we believe that local actions create a foundation of bigger systemic change. Thus, when listening to our partners from South and discussing on how to better support them, we also link to local action to global changes. Before giving the floor to our distinguished speaker, I would like to thank Metsä Group and the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry for their contribution to make this seminar to happen. Please enjoy the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Juha Marttila, for these welcoming words. And next, we'll hear a video greeting from European Commissioner for International Partnerships, Jutta Urpilainen.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to join you today to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Food and Forest Development Agency. Recent years have been turbulent, yet despite deep crises of pandemic, war and climate, we have kept the course. Both the Food and Forest Development Agency and the EU have stayed ambitious and supported farmers. When Russia started to use food as a weapon, the EU scaled up food partnerships. Last year, Team Europe, the EU and member states together disbursed 7 billion euros to support food security and sustainable food systems in partner countries. Altogether, Team Europe has committed 18 billion euros for food security by 2024. The European Green Deal, including the Farm to Fork strategy, provides the necessary framework, incentives, and investment for the transition towards sustainable food systems. In the middle of geopolitical competition and intensifying climate change impacts, we need to deliver on our ambitions. We cannot stand still when harvests are declining or failing. We need to act when food insecurity and hunger are on the rise globally. Global Gateway is Team Europe's strategy to deliver. We need to support the farmers, in particular women and youth, and empower them to drive change. This is what Food and Forest Development Finland has been doing for 10 years now. You have been sharing Finnish expertise for sustainable food solutions. And following this pattern, Team Europe can become the partner of choice for resilience. Dear friends, congratulations. I want to use this opportunity to reiterate my personal commitment to the Global School Meals Coalition, which was founded in the initiative of Finland and the UN World Food Programme. Because we must make sure that we leave no one behind.
Thank you, Commissioner Jutta Urpilainen. Great to have your greetings, even though it was not possible for you to participate here on site today. So next, for opening remarks, we welcome from our sister agency from Sweden, the Secretary General of WeEffect, Atte Tibblin.
Thank you so much. And let me start by saying I'm incredibly happy and proud to be here with you today. First of all, to celebrate this very important seminar, but also to celebrate the successes of 10 years of FFD, as well as to plan for the future and the successes to come. We're here to learn, and, you know, as a Swede, I'm thinking, when it comes to learning, what do I actually know about Finland? I know that you might have the best school system in the world. Congratulations to that. I know that you sometimes win the prize as the happiest people in the world. I also know that you are tough. You know, when it's 40 degrees cold, in Sweden, we close the schools. In Finland, you close the bathroom window. I think that we make these jokes because maybe we are just a little bit envious. I think things that you have managed also as the farmers' unions, as FFD, and how you've also contributed to your country's development, we don't have to go further back than the pandemic and see how you have been able to work with preparedness when it comes to food, preparedness when it comes to security, and preparedness when it comes to standing up both for your national interests and needs, but also for others with needs. I don't know if I should talk about NATO, but congratulations, you did it without so much nonsense, I guess we could say. Some things I think we also borrow from you, and one of them is Tove Jansson. I mean, my children have grown up with Tove Jansson as much as I'm sure as your children have. And at the moment, I think all of us are dealing with quite a number of Mummy trolls. So maybe that's something we have in common. Other things we have in common also have to do with how we work as FFD and as WeEffect. But let me tell you, it took some time before I understood that. Because the first time I met FFD, I met Seppo. And I said, how exciting, Seppo, can you tell me about how do you work in Finland? How is the collaboration in Agricord? And Seppo said, you. And then it took a while before we learned some more about how we work in our organizations. I met Seppo now and he still says, you. Last week, WeEffect, my organization, which is the development organization of the Swedish cooperative movement, where the farmers' union is one part, we had our 65-year birthday party. And I'll tell you, we're working very hard to be able to become a pensionist. And it's tough. We all know the statistics. We know what the situation is in the world. And I think you in Finland maybe know it a little bit more than many others. What's important to remember is that what we're working with in terms of the right to food, the support for smallholder farmers to organize themselves in organizations where they can stand stronger, both today and tomorrow, is more relevant than perhaps it's ever been before. In my organization, WeEffect, we, just as FFD, we work for the right to food, for smallholder farmers and forest owners. We work to ensure that female farmers have the same opportunities as male farmers so that they can fulfill their potentials, develop their farms and their organizations. like you, we also work hard to explain to our Swedish public why this is important. We work hard for funding. In our case, we have 60 cooperative organizations and companies as our founding members. They support us financially, but we're also increasingly looking into how can we work together also beyond the money. There is actually support beyond the money. And I'd like to just share a small story. We support coffee producer unions in Uganda. And these coffee producers have been producing for the local market. And I think many of you know exactly how it is. You can increase your level of income, you can increase the strength of the organization, but if you can't expand the markets, it can become a closed circle. We met and developed a collaboration with a small Swedish coffee company who are specialized in sustainable production and specialty coffee, if you will. And they said, hey, let's partner. And we said, yes, absolutely. Only one problem, capital. This is a small Swedish company. The Swedish aid and credit system doesn't have that kind of money because it was too little. So one of our member organizations, the Consumer Federation of Stockholm, said, okay, this is good for our members because this is an example of how we can work with sustainable business, circular economy, good for the planet, good for the farmers, good in your coffee cup. And last week, this has taken almost 5 years. Last week, the coffee was launched. It exists. It's concrete. And I'm incredibly proud of this project. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we do as WeEffect. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that you do as FFD and the work that we do together. Because if there's one thing that's sure, it is that 1 + 1 is more than 2. Congratulations to your birthday party, to your first 10 years. And just to say, thank you. We are stronger together, and I brought you some coffee. Tina, kom. See? There. And a little.
Oh, thank you.
So, thank you very much. I forgot. We need to do this. Does everybody have? Yeah? Are you ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Anna Tibblin. This was a real celebration. Thank you for all the good stories and examples that you gave. And thank you for being here with us today. We are really happy about that. Now that the FFD 10th year anniversary seminar is officially opened, we proceed to the keynote speaker. So please welcome from E2 Research, Dr. Atte Penttilä on farmers for sustainable and responsible food systems and forestry, from local action to systemic change. Welcome.
Thank you kindly. I gotta say, that's a hard act to follow. I didn't bring any whistles or anything, but thank you very much. That was nice. Good afternoon, friends of FFD. After graduating from the University of Helsinki with a master's in agroecology a little less than a decade ago, I moved to Bahir Dar, Ethiopia, due to my spouse's work. Quite soon after the move, I learned that a Finnish organization called the Finnish Agri-Agency for Food and Forest Development Finland, or more recently, Food and Forest Development Finland, was looking for a junior officer for a project focused on forestry, agroforestry, and timber marketing. So I applied for the job, eventually got it, spending the following 2 years stationed at a local cooperative union there in Bahir Dar, Ethiopia. Now we are here celebrating the 10-year anniversary of FFD. Thank you, Tina, for the invitation and for the job all those years ago. My name is Atte Penttilä, and since the mentioned job and subsequent other employment opportunities with FFD, I've entered the realm of research. I'm a food system and a resilience researcher at E2 Research, an independent research organization here in Helsinki. I hold a PhD in cultural anthropology with a specific focus on the environment and agricultural communities. My past research has investigated, for example, the effects of banana plantations to riverine environments and farmer communities in Belize, and of the Russian attack in Ukraine on Ukrainian seasonal workers and Finnish farmers. But more in relation to the topic of the day, my dissertation research focused on the activities of the AgriCord Alliance, the agri-agencies under that alliance, FFD being one of them, as well as the supported farmers' organizations, funders, during the global COVID-19 pandemic. The title of my speech today is Farmers for Sustainable and Responsible Food Systems and Forestry, from Local Action to Systemic Change. It's a mouthful, but for a reason. What becomes clear from the title is that there is some sort of a goal. The goal is to change something, to make something different, right? And not only change a little bit, but on a system level. There are also instructions in the title on how to reach that goal. In order to enact systemic change, local action needs to take place. With knowledge of the climate disaster, soil depletion, biodiversity loss, or any other crises affecting agriculture and forestry, the system, guided by globalized markets and trade, has not, unfortunately, radically changed. This is why local action is the leverage point, the place in which to intervene to begin the transition. The title holds more instructions. There are certain characteristics that must be embedded within the catalysts as well as the end results of the wanted change. They need to be sustainable and responsible. Sustainable on the local level means that the farming or forestry activities are such that they can be continued by the next generation. They are environmentally sound, that they provide a decent livelihood, and that they are resilient in all those mentioned aspects. On the system level, according to the UN, a sustainable food system is one that delivers food and nutrition security for all in such a way that economic, social, environmental bases to generate food security and nutrition for future generations are not compromised. With forestry, similar system-level definitions apply without the focus on food and nutrition. Responsible then refers to the idea of all aspects of the food system being fair, just, bereft of inequality. Ideas of equity are at the heart of a responsible system. Lastly, we have the protagonists, the central characters, the farmers and farmers' organizations, right? And farmer families and communities in continuation. This is where FFD has now operated for a decade. This is where local action takes place. This is where change begins. But we must acknowledge the transition can only come through if many actors across the system work together. Here in the agricultural development context, the main actors who are also present in this room and online are donors, such as the IFAD, EU, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Finland, who fund the operations in the Global South, the AgriCord Alliance, organizations such as FFD and other agri-agencies, and the farmers and farmer groups supported by the previous. Thereafter, markets and so on play a role, of course. But what is important to note is that while there is need to create change, change is also ever present in the landscapes. Farmers and forest owners, especially in the Global South, are witnessing the effects of climate change and environmental degradation on their lands. The old saying of fighting fire with fire transforms into fighting change with change. Adaptation is necessary, But adaptation requires effort, it requires funding, and it requires collaboration. Good examples of that collaboration are the Building Resilience Toolkits designed by AgriOrg FFD and other agri-agencies in the Alliance, which farmers' organizations can use to analyze climate risks and FO vulnerabilities, build resilience needed to overcome challenges brought on by the changing climate. What is often the case is that the same actions and activities that improve resilience, climate or other, are also fiscally sensible. For example, the 2019 report on Global Commission on Adaptation found that every dollar invested in adaptation could generate between $2 and $10 in economic benefits. Therefore, funding for climate change activities can and should, if properly directed, be seen as poverty reduction methods as well. Remember that these aspects, the environment and livelihoods, are integral to sustainability thinking. Furthermore, poverty reduction has a tendency to decrease local level environmental pressure, although it must be mentioned that the vast majority of emissions and subsequent environmental degradation on Earth are derived from the wealthy. According to Oxfam, 1% of humanity are responsible for twice as many emissions as the poorest 50%. Yet the fact is that failing to tackle and adapt to climate change would severely increase poverty. So if change is what is wanted, what are the processes that may lead to it? So cultures are static. Cultures are not static. They evolve and adapt through time, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. Alongside globalization, the social media changes cultures all over the world quite rapidly. Food cultures are not static either. They serve tortillas in Finnish schools now. They didn't when I was young. Agricultures are not static either. The things we grow change due to necessity, for example, because drier conditions require drought-resistant plants, or we want to eat different things, such as a more plant-based diet, or the opposite. Sometimes the catalyst for change is a sudden crisis that requires immediate attention. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, dependencies on imports were highlighted and local solutions were needed to tackle them. But sometimes change is more gradual, taking its time, seeping its way into our food systems, production and consumption, and everything in between. Forestry as well. In Finland, felling methods and carbon storage, for example, have been under public debate. Trends come and go, and with trends, funding often comes and goes as well. The ebb and flow of international development funding creates barriers for systemic change to take place. Gradual system and landscape level change requires long-term commitment to local efforts. We just heard that it took 5 years to get coffee to Tina's hands now. Climate funding should be focused on this type of long-term effects. Unfortunately, according to Climate Policy Initiative, less than 2% of global climate finance goes to smallholder producers, representing 95% of world's farms. Whether fast or gradual, change needs a catalyst. As an example, one seemingly efficient catalyst for change is certification, often driven by the demand of consumers in the global north. If certification is a catalyst for change, what type of change are we talking about? What is the goal of certification? Well, usually they're created for environmental, socio-economic, or food standards reasons, as we heard this morning as well. For smallholders, the possibility of receiving higher incomes is a strong incentive for certification. Nonetheless, to be certified, certain requirements must be met, requiring financial inputs, and most often training, meaning funding or investments. Investments may be available in contract farming schemes, for example. But in the agricultural development context, support for certification usually comes from donors. Studies show that certification systems are developing at such a high rate that smallholders are having difficulties in keeping up. Companies are setting up their own private sustainability standards, for example. So how can smallholders be expected to join several different certification schemes? There needs to be harmonization of standards. But what is also needed is thinking about smallholder farmers as more than mere suppliers, aligning their activities on farms and forests to the desires of consumers or companies in the north. Especially if they create barriers to smallholders to access markets without any support. All that being said, an hour or two ago, I had the pleasure of participating in a workshop where FFD's partner farmers organizations underlined factors important for change to occur. The change here is seen as something that tackles some of the aspects of a sustainable and responsible system, which I underlined earlier. I heard stories from several FFD partners in Tanzania and Vietnam. There were many factors that were mentioned. I will shortly introduce a few of them. The first one is organizational establishment and development. The idea of power in numbers is not new to the Finnish audience, or Swedish for that matter. Our history in agriculture and forestry is entwined with cooperative thinking. This can be seen as a first step that should be followed by many others. A strong organization helps with negotiations with markets and market actors, can offer, for example, training and capacity building for members. A strong organization often has more satisfied members. Participatory identification of needs and design of actions based on them was important. It's been found that any agricultural or rural development is more sustainable if it is based on actual needs of farmers and forest owners. So we must ask. Certification has indeed been found helpful, but not only the certification as such, but the training related to production methods and prevention of post-harvest losses has improved incomes of farmers. We just heard about this morning. Focusing on research-based activities is important. The research can be market research or any other. If the desire is to sell a product, there needs to be a market for that product. Research is, of course, also very important in climate change adaptation. As the final point, what I mentioned earlier about long-term commitments was brought up as a hindering factor. It takes years to effect change. And then when it is about to happen, projects often end. We need to target climate finance to smallholders, make it long-term, and make it flexible. Today, we will hear more of the results of FFD from the last decade. But for now, I want to say thank you to the FOs here today, the farmers organizations, and a happy anniversary to FFD. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Atte Penttilä, for your inspiring keynote speech. So we'll continue on these topics in the coming panel discussion as well. But before that, let's have a look into the work of FFD during the last decade. We start with our new video, A Decade of Impact.
हाम्रो यो बनाएको कारण चाहिँ एउटा वातावरणको लागि अब वनको विषयमा जलवायु परिवर्तन पनि न्यूनीकरणको लागि अब दुईवटा वनको बीचमा गराएको छौँ.
The climate change has affected us for quite long because the sun was too hot. It was even extraordinary than the other years. So the climate seems to have changed drastically, but we are still keeping on and heading on with the normal duties. As now you can see, we are trying to erect the tents to prevent the fire.
नमस्कार, म शान्ति महतो सुन्दरदीप महिला माछा पालन सहकारी संस्था लिगको संस्थापक अध्यक्ष। पहिला हामीले कार्प जातको माछा, विभिन्न कार्प जातको माछाहरू र त्यसमा चाहिँ सानो सिद्रा माछाहरू र प्राउन माछा भन्ने पाल्थ्यौँ भने अहिले चाहिँ हाम्रो जलवायु परिवर्तनको आधारमा हामी चाहिँ माछाहरू पोखरीमा
So I move around to farmers or to growers and teach them the good agricultural practices they're supposed to do in farms, on farms, and how to manage the production, how to make sure they conserve soil and water for maybe to improve their livelihood and to monitor every bit of production they are in.
TAHA kwa kushirikiana na FFD, mradi ambao unaitwa SEMA, tumeweza kuwafikia wakulima zaidi ya 3,000 ambao tumeweza kuwafundisha kuanzia mradi ulivyoanza mpaka sasa. Katika hao 3,000 ni zaidi ya wakulima 500 ambao wameweza kupata ithibati ya Global Gap. Hiki kiwango cha Global Gap ni kiwango cha kimataifa ambacho kinatambulika katika masoko hayo ya kimataifa. Hiki kiwango kinasaidia wakulima kuweza kuuza mazao yao nje, kwa maana ni kiwango ambacho asipokuwepo na hicho kiwango huwezi kupeleka mazao.
Financial training has helped me in about money management, discipline of using my money. I've been carrying the money from VSRA and lending to other members and get any interest from that money.
Being a single woman, I'm getting everything that a married woman can get since I'm educating my children through that land. I'm getting money from tea. I get money from the avocados. Being in the cooperative, since we sell fruits the same price as men sell, so we get the same money we get.
Mahinda marĩa ndereirwo gĩkundi gĩkĩ ndajoinire 2021 kĩa ABCBO, Agriculture Beyond CBO. Gĩkundi kĩu ndiera nĩ ngakorwo ndĩna ũteithio ũrĩa ndĩrona thaa ici, tondũ gĩkundi kĩu kĩna chairman witũ na patron witũ harĩa nĩ gĩkoretwo kĩnyitĩrĩire mwena wĩgiĩ gwetha thoko ya kwendia matunda maya, na matunda maya nĩmo tũkoretwo mũthuri wakwa hĩndĩ ĩyo arathiĩ ya thibitarĩ ya Ndĩirĩ arathiĩ na matunda maya. Hatirĩ andũ ndĩrekire rũni, na gũtirĩ mwana ũratigire gĩthomo, na gũtirĩ maũndũ ndĩrokire gũcenjia thĩinĩ wa bamĩrĩ, thengia gũkorwo ngĩikara ndĩigĩte ũguo ndĩ wiki.
So this gives you an idea of FFD as an organization, what we do and how we work. And next we welcome FFD's Executive Director to present some of FFD's results and key findings. Please welcome Tiina Huvio.
Thank you, Jenny, and it's really a pleasure to be here. It's nice to see this meeting hall so full. I see here some of my ex-colleagues, our FO partners, plenty of supporters of FFD, but also faces that I don't know, which is very important to us because we want to grow, we want to extend the work that we are doing. We've had the decade of impact. And I wanted to say a couple of words about what do we want to achieve, why we do this work, and what have been achieved. Some of the numbers you saw already, but we'll repeat them. It's always good to repeat for learning. So let's take the next slide, please. Oh, I need to do it, okay? We always learn something. Okay, I want to start with the global level. We've all committed to Sustainable Development Goals. At least we should be. We agreed this in 2015, and we should be able to achieve the goals by 2030. We were doing quite well. Unfortunately, the pandemic and now all the different conflicts, the latest in Israel and Palestine, are actually hampering and taking us backwards. I wanted to start with these, in any case, as kind of an overarching umbrella. What are the SDGs we want to achieve? And with those SDGs that we have been working with, I also indicated a specific way in which FFD is trying to achieve them. Of course, we start with the poverty reduction. And then we want to work with smallholder farmers who often belong to the most poorest people in the world. But we believe that working with them, with their livelihoods in agriculture and forestry, we can lift them gradually out of poverty. We can maybe lift some people who are not then in the future going to work with farming, but they work with the food systems. It has to be more efficient, and there will be more interesting jobs related to farming. Zero hunger is, of course, important for food producers. So we have to also work with production and productivity. We're dealing a lot with agriculture and forestry. We know also that agriculture is one of the drivers of deforestation. We have to be able to produce efficiently, but also environmentally and climate smartly. Gender has been mentioned here, and we believe, as in Sweden and Finland, we have been using the strength of both men and women to get where we are at the moment. And we believe that it's an important element of development. But this morning, actually, I think somebody said it as well. If you want to promote women, you have to work with men. We have to also give men an opportunity to provide the space for women to grow in their roles. Decent work and economic growth, and I think this is one of the core aspects of our work. We want farmers to be able to earn their living through their practices. And this is the same for agriculture and forestry. We have to see farmers not only as producers, but being part of the economic system and giving them the role and the income they merit. Reduce inequalities, of course, and here we take the farm organizations to the center of our action. Organized, united farmers can be more efficient, can get better market prices for their products, have better access to market, but also be active partners in the society and negotiate better deals for themselves. I think in Finland, MTK sometimes has succeeded so well that they are being accused for being too powerful, but I think that it has been a very important factor in the development of Finland. Responsible consumption and production. We deal with consumption, but since we're dealing with producers, so it's a lot about improving production, productivity, but also post-harvest practices. A lot of food losses is happening, and especially in developing countries, it's happening in the field and just after the field. Climate action, and unfortunately, when we had our workshop this morning, it really emphasizes the need to work with climate adaptation. Many of the achievements we have reached with our partners, they say that the climate change is jeopardizing the results already achieved. And many of the adaptive actions by farmers, they also contribute to mitigation. Life of land is very much the same, and we keep in mind also all the problems that we're facing at the moment. Environmental issues, biodiversity losses, depletion of soils. We have to take care of our surroundings and our environment. The last two SDGs are not the least. I think that well-governed, democratic, inclusive farmers' organizations and cooperatives are really a basis for peace, justice, and strong institutions in the societies. And we achieve this together with our partners. And we leverage the effect through all our collaborators. Oh, I'm going to the wrong direction. I don't know how this works. Okay. Technology is helping us sometimes. I wanted to take this picture because I wanted to show the importance of working with farmers' organizations, because I think that they can be the foundation for development. They build capacity to secure ecosystem services, which produces climate resilience and economically viable livelihoods. They are the linkages to other partners and networks, all the way building access to fair markets and value chain. And this all will reduce poverty. It provides resilience for the communities, improves democracy and inclusive growth. And this is the reasoning why FFD is really targeting the farmers' organizations, the forest producers' organizations, and the cooperatives. We do believe that all this development is depending on these coordinated actions by organized farmers. And this is just to show this. I really like this picture because I think it's elegant and it's also very descriptive. It shows how our climate work, institutional, organizational, and development, gender provides the foundation for all the work that we are doing along the value chain. You saw these numbers in the film, but I really want to emphasize these as well. We've been working in 11 different countries. This morning we had the discussion, and I really like when all our partners were saying that what they want to do with our support is to gain independence so that they can continue actions and activities if and when we are not there. And I think this describes also how we will be working. And there are some countries where we are not working anymore, but we know that our partners are still active, providing services to their members and developing their income-generating activities. But what I think is really important is that we have been able to support 108,000 farmers and forest producers directly. They have participated in our workshops, they have received trainings, they've gone to field visits to meet other farmers or other experts. And we believe that we have really improved the lives of 500,000 people. And I think we can be really proud of that. And even more, I think that the farmers' organizations that we have been working with are very proud of these results. Since all the donors love numbers and it's important to show the efficiency, we want to underline as well that 4.8 million euros went directly to the farmers' organizations, because we believe that you grow responsible by having your own budget, executing your activities and being accountable what you are doing that money with. You're accountable for your members, less for us. I think that we often come out as, somebody excessively focusing on reporting and numbers, etc. But I think what is more important is that these euros are used to provide services to your members. And those are the persons you are accountable for. We've also planted about 15.2 million trees during these 10 years. It might be even more. And what is more important, we believe that most of these trees are still standing because they are worth of money for the farmers. And even if people fell them, they replant them because they earn money from the trees. And I know, for example, that in Ethiopia, those communities which are producing charcoal, they have more forest than the neighboring communities. So I think that it also shows that having a monetary value for trees makes sense. Of course, we also protect natural forests. But planted forests can be also a buffer to protect the natural forest, because then if you need wood, you go to your planted trees. For climate action, we have built together with Agricord and some key agri-agencies, and I would like to mention in particular FFD, our French sister organization, and TRIAS, our Belgian sister organization. Also WeEffect and AHA from Germany have been contributing greatly. We built a training guide because we noted that all the farmers are very concerned about climate change, but they don't really understand what it is. They see that something is changing with the weathers and rains, but especially they don't see themselves as climate actors. And this toolkit is really designed for them to understand what are the consequences of climate change in their surroundings, what are their vulnerabilities in front of the climate change, and what is in their power to act, and to define those actions for which they can request for more support. Sometimes it's really, they have been requesting funding for similar kind of activities, but this also helps them to justify the same activities from the climate point of view. Thanks to Agricord, this is really a global tool, and it's available in English, Spanish, and French. We have trained more than 200 trainers, and we have already rolled it out to more than 1,400 farmers in different countries, in different continents. We have been supported by many other people, but before going to our supporters, I would like to ask two of my colleagues from South. I'd like to ask Dr. Phuong from Vietnam and Zakaria Kiputa from Tanzania to say a couple of words on the results from their point of view. I think it sounds more believable, like credible, if they are local ones.
Thank you, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zakaria Kiputa from Tanzania Horticultural Association, TAHA, in Tanzania. Since our work with FFD, I think, started back in 2013, where we were working with smallholder farmers in Zanzibar. Our main focus with this project was mostly on increasing productivity for smallholder farmers in Zanzibar. Between that, Zanzibar Island, there were no horticulture there at the moment. But as a result, 80% of the horticultural crops that was consumed in Zanzibar was mainly dependent from mainland. But currently, 2019 onward, we have seen a tremendous effect. Like currently, they are also importing some of the value chains to the mainland, which is the FFD work that we did, building the capacities on how to increase the productivity, but also the willingness to try other new value chains, because before there was like Zanzibar is not suitable for horticultural crops. So we came up with FFD. So that's the one, but also one of the results that was realized, we are currently implementing the project on quality assurance, the certification system, where we want to build, where we want to access the export market for the smallholder farmers. And we are currently implementing this project called the SEMA, Quality Assurance for Enhanced Market Access of Smallholder Farmer in Tanzania, where we see the certification is only option for smallholder farmer to access the export market. But, you know, as the executive associate said, that sustainability is the only thing that they can transform the smallholder farm, but not only smallholder farmers, but as FAOs. This project build the capacities of TAHA, because they know that even if the project is phased out, and then we have the technical capacities of experts to train farmers on quality assurance. So that is also one of the aspects of sustainability. So more than 15 agronomists or TAHA experts have been trained on on quality assurance, currently global gap. And from that, this in turn helped more than 3,200 farmers have been trained, but also currently 650 farmers have been certified who are accessing the export market. So the number is increasing, but at the end of the day, these certified farmers, actually they are gaining slightly incentive in terms of market assurance, but also increase the price, because at the end of the day, the export market is quite different from the local market. But because of these climate issues, currently, you know, we can't separate agriculture and climate change. These things have to be put into same bucket. You know, the effect is always there, and everyone is seeing it. So FFD currently also, they are supporting one of the farmers in Northern to have a very sustainable way of managing water. As we all know that water is one of the very challenging natural resources to agriculture. So we are trying to use water in sustainable way, but also through renewable energy, solar. So this is the ongoing project, and farmers are willing to cooperate, but also they see there is a need of having a water sustainable aspect. I mean, water sustainable means for them to get the irrigations of horticultural crops being going there. So there are so many realized results from FFD since 2013, and these are just the two. I mean, these are just few to highlight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zakaria. And then I have Dr. Fuang.
Thank you, Tina. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Phương. I'm a representative for the project implementation partner in Vietnam. Now I'm working in Center for Climate Change Study in Central Vietnam. And our organization like contact points, the FFD in Vietnam. Yes, I understand that the time is limited. So it's because the results that is the cooperation between our center with FFD and the cooperative alliance in Vietnam is we cannot count it. So, but I just pointed some very main results and main impacts that the FFD, during 10 years, we cooperated with the FFD in Vietnam. That the first thing is in 3 projects, one is completed and 2 other projects is ongoing. So the first thing is the cooperative organization, I mean the farmer organization in Vietnam in a 3 level, national level, provincial level, and community levels, also raising their knowledge and improve their capacity in forest sustainable management in Vietnam, and they can learn some technical during the process to apply the forest certification, even in PFC and FSC certificate. And another very important result is the farmer, I mean the at the individual level for farmer in Vietnam, that's they are the member of the cooperative and cooperative alliance in Vietnam. They participate in the several training workshop, and they can learn about how they can adapt with the changing of climate by the building resilient tool in Vietnam. And yes, and another important impact for the farmer is that they can raise their voice for the local authorities and at the provincial level and also for national level. So it's help them express their ideas about their roles during their during their livelihood activities. And last but not least, for our centers, we learned a lot during the time we work with the FFD, Ms. Tina, Noras, and other staff in FFD. So yes, thank you so much, and congratulations for achievement during 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fong. Here, I just want to show some of the organizations and supporters who have been with us. We have, of course, the 4 founding fathers, if I could say, MTK, SLC, ProAgria, and Pellervo Cooperative Center. Here are some of the supporters. We have the Foreign Ministry of Finland. We have the French Development Agency, ACP, Organization for Africa, Caribbean and Pacific. We have International Fund for Agricultural Development, the European Union, and GIZ, which is a German development agency. I would like to also give thanks to our supporters who helped us to organize this seminar, the Ministry for Agriculture and Forestry, and Metsä Group. When we were organizing this, we agreed that this would be linked to the World Food Day, and this year's topic is water. You notice that we didn't mention water very, very often in this presentation. Nevertheless, we talked constantly about climate change, and for farmers, climate change's biggest hazard is the water availability. You might have water, but it's during the wrong season. You might have too much water, or you might have too little water. So when we talk about climate change, it's very much about water, and it kind of constantly pops up when we deal with farmers on that. I think that we are approaching a panel. Nevertheless, before we start, I would like to ask all the FFD staff to stand up so that you see who we are. So we had Adrian, Rika, Chi, Janita, Jenny, Elianchea and Nora. So we noticed that we are quite a small team. I think we have achieved a lot. So thank you, and special thank for Jenny and Janita and Matthias. There should be a Matthias, yes, who has been volunteering for us. Thank you. But I would now like to give the floor to our panelists. Maybe I could ask Dr. Kaisa Karttunen, or should I say already Professor Kaisa Karttunen? Please, the floor is yours.
I think that it takes us a second to get organized with all the members of the panel, so I give you a chance to stand up for a minute, stretch your legs and your back, say hello to your neighbor, and meanwhile we get organized on this side. So the panelists, please come here. Okay. Joo, katsotaan miten se menee. Ja tuo on toi Satu näkyy olevan täällä, niin hän sitten...
Kertomassa vähän mitä nyt
okay.
Jäi.
Okei. Nyt tää pöytä. Joo. Anne, Kastori, Elis, Kati. Okei. Okei, eli mä annan niinku handing over to you.
We should get a little bit of that glitter on our shoulders, right?
Okay, are we ready to continue? Please come and take your seats. Yeah, I knew there is always a risk when you give people 20 seconds. They tend to run away. Ladies and gentlemen, please, we are going to continue. Okay, 30 seconds more and then we start. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think it's time to start the panel discussion session. As Jenny kindly introduced, my name is Kaisa Karttunen, and she was a bit hesitant if she can call me a professor. Yes, she can. I just started my new career as a professor of practice on food security at the University of Helsinki. Actually, I started it yesterday. So I'm a very, very fresh professor. But I would like to mention one thing from my history. It was in 1985. When the Farmers' Union recruited me, I was still a student at that time, and the Finnish Farmers' Union recruited me to put together a first development cooperation project of the farmers' organization. It was a great experience for a young student. How to organize a project, how to work with the Finnish farmers, how to make the Finnish farmers to collect funds for a project in Africa, and then make my first visit to Africa and learn to know that the planet is quite huge, and meet African farmers and organizations and the government and gradually starting to learn that what it is all about. And I worked for a couple of years for the farmers' organization on that specific project, and then I felt that I'm already ready to go to Africa and start working from that end. And here I am now, after all these years. And I'm very pleased to be here today to moderate the panel discussion. We have about 1 hour, a bit less than an hour, more or less. I will give a chance to you during the discussion to ask questions from the panelists, but we start with our own questions. But please don't hesitate to raise your hand if something comes to your mind, so that we make it as interactive as possible. So we have here 4 very experienced panelists. I'm very proud to moderate this team. We have Dr. Anne Valto. I will give them a bit later a chance to introduce themselves more thoroughly. We have Mr. Kasturi Timbula. We have, instead of Birgit Nevala, we have here Elis Hemberg. Birgit unfortunately didn't feel well, but instead of her, he sent here Elis, whom we all know quite well. Actually, we're very happy to have him as replacement. And then we have here Kati Partanen. And I think that we start by giving them a chance to introduce themselves briefly, where they come from, which organization they represent. And I want to place the one specific question already now. While after introducing yourself, would you kindly briefly reflect your perspective to sustainability? What does it mean to you and your organization? And responsible production. What does it mean? What's the specific meaning of this? Sustainability and responsible production. And we start with Anne, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Like said, my name is Anne Valto, and I come from FinFund. And for those of you who have not heard of FinFund, FinFund is a development financing institute based here in Finland, Helsinki, and having also an office in Nairobi. We are nearly fully owned by the Finnish government, and we operate with the private sector companies in developing and emerging economies. Myself, like I said, I'm a doctor in forestry, and did my research in among smallholder farmers. It's been always close to my heart, coming from a small farm myself. And I think that sustainable, responsible production, personally, it's based on the principle that already my mother taught to me. Always leave the places at least in as good condition as they were when you entered the room or place or whatever. I think it applies to the planet as well. And we should not harm the future generations' options by doing harm for our planet. So rather leave it in a better condition than poor. And I think FinFund is a good place to work with that principle in mind, because also the organization is applying very much sustainability principles in their activities, trying to achieve positive impact on the planet and on the SDGs.
Thank you very much. Then Mr. Kasturi Timbula, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kastori Matembele Timbula, the CEO for the Tanzania Tree Growers Association Union, which is a member-based organization working to fight for interests of the members in terms of social and economic well-being. Thank you. In regards with the context she has just put ahead of us is we as farmers from Tanzania, and especially Tanzania Tree Growers Association Union, we consider responsible production not being a self-centered approach, and instead we put more people, environment, ecosystem, and biodiversity, and marketed consumers at the center of the planning and the production and the distribution channels, taking into account that doing against those will automatically impact ourselves and influence our businesses. So we also consider working in an inclusive way, bringing together different groups to make it more sustainable and to handle the planet that we were given by God to the coming generations, as we were given the right when we were given by God. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then Elis, your turn.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Elis Hemberg. I work as a program officer at Finn Partnership, which is the Finnish business partnership program financed by the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, and we work mostly with, as the name implies, private sector development. So our clients are mostly Finnish companies seeking to extend their operations to developing countries or to import products from developing countries to Finland. In terms of sustainability from our perspective, it is at the very center of our work. Our main target or indicator that we work with is sustainable jobs. And the word sustainable is already in that indicator for a good reason, because merely job creation in itself does not necessarily bring a lot of added benefit to the people that we wish to help, the beneficiaries in the target countries where our projects are done. And for that reason, it is at the core of our evaluation criteria for the applications we receive and for the financing that we make. And we also monitor this work related to sustainability, environmental and social sustainability throughout the life cycle of the project. So it is not merely at it is at the very core of what we do, and it is a non-negotiable item that cannot be separated from the work of our projects.
Thank you so much. And then we have Kati, please.
Thank you, Kaisa. Yes, hello everyone, and thank you for the invitation to attend this panel. Yes, my name is Kati Partanen. I'm a farmer and forest owner from Finland, in Iisalmi, about 500 kilometers north from here, from Helsinki. I have studied agriculture economics, agricultural policy in Helsinki University, and I'm also member of board in MTK, and also member of board in the World Farmers Organization, where I'm representing European farmer organizations. And I think for me personally, but also for both for MTK and for WFO, the responsibility and sustainability, they are cornerstones of every activity. I think they are cornerstones in agriculture and forestry, in family farming, in private forest owners, but they are also in the farmer organizations, the cornerstones. And I think I would very much share the opinion with my colleagues in the panel. And I think like this thinking over generations and leaving everything in better condition for the next generation is good value. But I would also want to remind all dimensions of the sustainability. So it's important economical, social, and ecological sustainability. But I would also like to highlight the inclusiveness, which was raised in the presentation of FFD. Inclusiveness and democracy, they are also like cornerstones in sustainability and responsibility.
Thank you so much. So we heard there are many dimensions and there are many views towards sustainability and responsible production. There are also several different expectations and requirements that are set for agriculture and forestry, for example, as regards their contribution to food security and their contribution to nutrition and producing high quality raw material for different types of value chains and industries. Farmers and forest producers, they are supposed to use natural resources in a sustainable way while earning their living and their families' living from the agricultural land and livestock and forests. And then there's also the social dimension, social expectations of sustainability, which requires, for example, paying attention to gender equality and providing decent jobs to agricultural labor force. So there are a lot of expectations. And somehow I feel that responsibility and responsible and sustainable production, they are catchwords of today. Wherever we go, we hear these words. There are a bit different views, different meanings, different weight put into different dimensions of sustainability in different parts. I know, for example, FinFund and Fin Partnership, you don't work so much directly with farmers, but the companies you work with and the organizations you work with, they have very close links to farmers. So I think that you are in a good position here to reflect also those aspects. And we don't talk only about the sustainability and responsibility requirements of farmers, but also the other parts of the value chains. So who is processing the food, who is selling the food, who is consuming the food. There are many, many different aspects and dimensions there, and we try to make some sense out of all that during this discussion. And now I would like to go to the first real question. And this is directed to Kati and Kasturi, especially. Would you have any good examples how farmers and forest producers manage all these different requirements? What are the hard decisions that the farmers and forest producers need to make? And Kati, perhaps you could start.
Oh, thank you. Basically agriculture is, well, it's simply combining like work and assets in different kind of combinations, but they can differ in different farms in many ways. So every farmer, every forest owner, we make the decisions based on the conditions, based on the where we are, what are the assets in the farm. But of course, they are also based on the strategy what is chosen in the farm or in the company, also in other parts of value chain. And for example, we make the cultivation plans, and in the forest management, we have the forest management plan, which is made by the local forest owners association or forest management association. But I think it's very much difficulties now. Well, recently we have faced a huge rise of costs, for example, and it has forced us to change some strategies, because the rise of costs, and then we have to compare what kind of price would we get from the products in the markets. So it has forced us to make actually quite quick changes during some months. We had to modify our strategy, and of course, following the markets. But also we sell majority of our products in our farm. We sell directly to some other farmers, but also to the local small mill. So for us, it's quite easy to have the negotiation directly. But I think it's a bit more difficult to have the negotiations in the input with the input providers, because they are usually big actors. But of course, we can change something in the farm level. And I think one of the most difficult decision is related to investments, because quite often, especially the big investments in farm level, they have very long payback time. And usually the revenues from the agricultural products for the farmer, they are very slow. So it needs very much consideration and very much advice, and of course training from the farmers to make the decisions, because it's huge. You have to think for 10 or 20 years ahead. The investments, and even maybe decide already something, thinking about the next generation. What do they want? Are they taking over the farm? So I think there are quite often the other actors in the value chain, they don't understand that, for example, that these investments really it's huge long-term decisions what we make.
Well, what would you like to add, Kasturi, from the forest producer's perspective? How do you balance between these different requirements that are set to forest producers?
Thanks. I would like to say that we are all here dancing the music of climate change. And as forest producers and farm producers, we are also part of that. We all have to make our decisions which will, in one way or another, suit the conditions that we are in. As farmers, we are the first people to experience the impacts of climate change and food insecurity. If we plan and implement or execute in a way that is not in favor of the situation. So as farmers, we have the key things that we take into account when we plan and we produce, we market, and whatever. One of those is to think of sustainability, as I said earlier, and in connection with the climate change, and these include the sustainable agriculture, land management, that we plan so that we can produce and harvest according to the costs that we invest. Together with this, we are using the Building Resilience tool, which is a tool that makes the farmers master their environment and help them to be prepared according to the changes they experience, and plan the costs according to what they want to produce. And this makes it very hard for the farmers, because all this adds the costs to their production, while the prices the costs and the prices, in most cases, they do not match. The costs of production increases more than the increase on the prices. And this makes the life for the farmers a little bit difficult. As an organization, then, we have to devise mechanisms for farmers to try to reduce the costs and increase the margin for their produce, like bringing them together for marketing, collective marketing, and which also has a benefit to the buyers, which by reducing the costs to source the materials from the farmers. These decisions are sometimes difficult for farmers to come together because of the limited land they have, the limited resources they have, and they have also to change from the common practices of extensive farming to intensive farming. Intensive farming normally involve technology, involve more technical know-how, involve a lot of inputs and other things, which also adds costs to the farmers. And also, against if we compare these to the normal or the previous practices where farmers had the tendency of clearing and farming or shifting agriculture, now things are becoming so tight that they have to spend on a specific area for production, which means also they have to increase the use of inputs, especially the fertilizers, which also increases the costs of production. So as we talk of responsible production and sustainability, we need also to think of the costs that are incurred by the farmers against the prices or the return on the costs they have invested. Thank you.
Thank you. Very important views from your perspective. Then I would like to ask Anne and Elis, maybe Anne can start. When you finance businesses in developing countries, and Elis, when you provide partnership support to agri and forestry businesses, how do you deal with these sustainability and responsibility issues? Are there kind of a condition? How do you monitor? How do you supervise that your companies and your partnership organizations, that they really take them seriously? So can you provide some good examples, for example?
Thank you. Indeed, I can, and I can also tell that actually there are 3 pillars in our investment process from the beginning till the end, and they are, of course, financial one. We are a financing institution. Then there's the sustainability pillar, and then there's the impact pillar. So it's really integrated into our approach in the whole process. And to actually the lens through which we look at the sustainability is, first of all, the risk perspective, and that there we actually use quite extensive, quite thorough international framework, the IFC performance standard, which covers various topics, themes of sustainability. And we expect that our investee companies, they will within the investment period reach the levels that are required in those standards. So that's kind of a risk side, that we look at the risks that the business can cause to environment and to society. But then there's increasingly also the other side of the coin, that what kind of risks the environment can cause to the business, and that links strongly to the climate change, for example. So that we need to take into consideration also the climate risks that could harm the business and how well they are taken into consideration in the business model. So I would say that it's essential part, and it's always discussed when we discuss about our investments. It's monitored throughout the investment period. The companies are expected to report to us against the environmental and social criteria that we give them. And also we, in most cases, I would say nearly in all cases, we also we formulate some requirements for the investee companies, that these are the activities, these are the actions you need to put in place so that you will achieve the sustainability levels we expect from you to as being a responsible investee. So yes, it's definitely in the core, and it's gaining even more and more weight. There are new dimensions all the time introduced into the whole kind of a concept of sustainability. How it was in the past, it was much thinner package of paper what you had to look at. Now it's just on a yearly basis, I would say there are new tools, new indicators, new ways of looking at things. So it's gaining even more weight all the time.
I have one additional question to you. Do you provide any capacity development to these companies that you finance in terms of sustainability issues?
No, not directly yet, but we should in the end of this year to certain sectors, and hopefully next year also to at least to our forestry and agri investments be able to provide more concrete support and technical assistance so that they can then build their capacities, for example, in sustainable value chains. And there we need to thank the EU guarantee funds that we are likely to achieve, but not signed yet. So let's not celebrate it yet, but we're working on it.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And then, Elis, would you like to share with us how is it when you try to promote these partnerships, North and South partnerships?
Yes, so in the case, we actually, our program is administered by FinFund. So we are a part of the FinFund company as our team located there in the same building. So we actually share a lot of the processes that Anne already mentioned earlier. So for instance, the IFC performance standards is something that we also use as a part of our evaluation. And we actually get assistance from the FinFund environmental and social experts in evaluating the projects. So it is indeed, as I mentioned earlier, it is done at the very beginning already when we make our financing decision. We per se cannot make a financing decision to a project that has unresolved, unmitigated risks related to environmental and social sustainability. So it is indeed something that we do there. And then we provide, for instance, support services. We pay for, first of all, as a part of the actual project budget quite often, an ENS appraisal is a very common tool that we finance. Second of all, we also provide free of charge these kinds of consulting vouchers for our projects, which also help in sort of capacity building for the Finnish client. And then that knowledge can then be shared with the local partner as well. Also, in some cases, the local partner will directly benefit from our funding in terms of the training related to ENS matters and sustainability matters, climate change mitigation, things like this. We do finance a little bit different types of projects, so it's hard to say maybe an overall approach that is always taken. It does vary a little bit, for instance, by whether the project in agriculture or forestry is related to imports to Finland or whether it is products intended for the local market. So there is a bit of a difference. But overall, the common theme is that all projects that we finance, and also I forgot to mention that the Foreign Ministry, when they make their financing decisions for our projects, actually quite often mandate or recommend some of these findings that we have found in the analysis that we have done to the ministry. So it is indeed a thing that it takes throughout the project life cycle. Our projects are only 2 years long, and the maximum that we can finance per project, per target country, per company is 400,000. So we're not talking about a huge amount of funding at once. But nonetheless, for that amount of money, I would say that our processes are quite robust, and we are trying to develop them, of course, further all the time.
Thank you. And what I really like, as you said, that you provide capacity development also to the Finnish companies or the Finnish partners in these partnerships. I think it's a good starting point to see that we have our kind of a home ground is well functioning, and they follow the principles and rules, and sometimes necessary also in Finland. So we have already heard from our panelists that farmers and forest producers, they often struggle with profitability problems, the cost of production increasing, and the market prices of the produce are not following the same speed. And now we have these different new existing and new environmental requirements, for example, sustainability requirements. So are the prices that the farmers get from their products and forest producers get from their products, are these new requirements reflected on those prices at the moment? What is your view? I ask from Kati and Kasturi first.
Do you want to start, or?
Yes, I can. I can say no. And capital letter no. Because when the requirements are stipulated, they do not take into consideration of all the costs involved in producing a certain crop. They do not take into consideration the differences in environment, geographical locations, distances from the farm to the market, infrastructures, differences, and other things. They do not take into considerations on the impact of climate change or what is going to happen during the production process up to the market. So the farmers find themselves, they are in a situation that they are the most affected group. And with that one, sometimes it leads to people to change their businesses or to live out from farming and go to other simple businesses or petty businesses, which in most cases has also impact on the lives of the people, because they start a new living style, which was not experienced or thought of before. So I think we need to have, when we formulate these things, to have also the inputs from the farmers themselves, to have the experience of what farmers are going through, to have also the experience and forecasts of what will happen in future. Take, for instance, at the moment, the prices of fertilizers are skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. But the prices of crops, produce, they are not increasing to a pace that the prices of inputs has increased. The cost of production and the cost of transport, as a result of the increase the cost of fuel and other things, they didn't take into consideration of what the farmers are going to face. So to me, as a farmer, I say the farmers are on the disadvantaged side, and is affecting their livelihood to a situation that we are creating an environment where farmers will always keep on being less and less profitable. Farming is becoming less and less profitable, though the demand for the farmers' produce, demand for food and other things is on the increase. So they are going in the opposite directions. Mm-hmm. We need to see how we can balance this. Thank you.
Thank you. you have something to add, Kati, on this, or you mostly agree?
I think this was very well said, and I also have to say that frankly, often no, it's not often compensating. There are, of course, we have some cases, for example, some projects, some subsidy systems, where there is compensation available for the new requirements, but usually often that project or certain period, it's seemed as a new normal, and then we come back to the same low price as before. And even though it might be producing with the higher costs, and I think quite often the problem is that the consumers who buy the product, they don't often know what is the difference between different products. Basically, the biggest or the most important information they get from the product in the shop is the price. And it's quite difficult to compare the different products, and especially it's difficult to know what is happening in the in the primary production side, and what does the farmer really get. And I think it's like it's really important to improve cooperation among farmers, to increase their bargaining power. But also it's important to, in legislation, it's important to know that farmers are usually the most vulnerable in the value chain. So legislation should especially protect farmers and especially smallholders. And I think it's important when, for example, creating different kind of new programs, it's really important to involve farmer organizations to the decision-making process and the planning process. So not designing something only from the governance point of view or from big value chain actors' point of view, but really involve farmer organizations into the decision-making.
So do you ever discuss these issues with those companies that you deal with, Anne, for example, that you are financing companies in agriculture and forestry? So are these questions ever, you do come across with them, the prices the producers get from their products?
That's part of the social sustainability discussion also, that what kind of price they can pay for the farmers. And well, I can only agree with fellow panelists, and that in most cases the compensation is not necessarily there, especially if the companies are producing for the local market or for emerging economy markets. So there's no that consumer willingness to pay the price. It can't be integrated into the product price, etc., etc. So in that sense, it's a tricky one. And even here in the global north, I would say, yes, there's been more and more awareness and recognition of for example, different kind of certificates that demonstrate sustainability. So in that sense, yes, there might be a price premium if you're producing for export markets for the global north. But again, that's something where people are saving money now when there's economic turbulence. So you pick the cheap product. So what can you do there? But on the other hand, then I'm also referring to the systemic change that our keynote speaker, Dr. Penttilä, referred to, that in the end, actually, if you can take a little bit longer term perspective, those more sustainable practices are actually economically more, they are better economically in the longer term. The tricky part is that if you're relying on a smallholder supply chain, with that little income they make, they can't afford to make that investment for the transition. And that's where then the additional support and financing is needed to actually help them to invest in those better methods that are also environmentally more sustainable and improve their long-term performance.
Thank you. Elis, would you like to add something?
Yes, maybe to just add a perspective from the consumer and market perspective here in Finland. Yeah, as mentioned, it is a tricky problem, this demand for more responsible products. But I think that demand is nonetheless there. We're seeing it in the fact that a lot of our applicant companies work in that type of operation. A lot of our applicants are small and medium-sized enterprises, so for them, usually they cannot compete on price on anything, let alone for something like agricultural production or forestry. So in those cases, usually it's quality and it is responsibility that they can use to build up that niche for themselves in an oftentimes very competitive market, if you're, for instance, talking about agricultural imports into Finland. So it can be challenging, but that's usually the way forward, in my opinion. For instance, we have supported several coffee production projects where we have found that a small Finnish company working directly with smallholder farmers and farmers organizations, that is a very good recipe. It really works. And we would like to see more of those types of projects, in fact, so feel free to talk to me afterwards. I would be more than happy to tell you about what we can facilitate there. Mm-hmm. But yes, absolutely, I think there is a challenge, and that price generation for the producer is indeed a very challenging problem. But one solution would be this kind of niche production, quality production for the Finnish market. There is increasing demand nonetheless here.
This is interesting. Then, of course, we have all these mechanisms like payment for ecosystem services. We have the carbon credits, different schemes on that, other mechanisms to compensate for the extra work or maybe lower yield the farmer gets when farming in an environmentally sustainable way. So, do you have any views or any experiences? Any of you who would like to reflect on this? Do they work? What are the problems with the payments of ecosystem services or carbon credits? Have you come across in any of your projects or your organizations? Anna, I can see you want to start.
I have at least an example, an early one, but and not actually directly with smallholder producers, but that's something we are working on now with our forestry companies. That the existing carbon financing can also be channeled to enhance the environmental restoration work. So kind of combination of different kind of environmental objectives is linked to the same package. So we as a FinFund, we are compensating our operational emissions from our travels, from our office, all that. We are buying carbon credits from a forestry company in Nicaragua, which is then doing restoration activities along the river buffer zones and so forth, actually to enhance the environmental integrity, I would say, in the region, which is very high on biodiversity, valuable environment as such. So that's an example how it can happen, and I know that FFD also has worked with tree growers to integrate this carbon financing to their business model. So it can support, it can help, but I think in longer run we also need to look at other actors like the governments. For example, the new global biodiversity framework refers to those harmful subsidies, which are still very widely paid globally, especially in the developing world. And there needs to be a shift in the mindset that what do you support with your subsidies, so that you would actually take the money from the harmful ones and then finance that transition to the more sustainable practices. So I think there are many sources of finance for that. It can't be only the consumer loan. It can't be only through certification. It can't be only the private financing, but various financing sources should be actually combined to actually make the change happen.
Yeah. Before I give the floor to Kati, I want to advertise that there was a very nice piece of article about this very project in Nicaragua that Anne just mentioned. It is in the Maaseudun Tulevaisuus newspaper about 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah, Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw it and I read it and I was very impressed because they really try to see how to put these different aspects of sustainability together. How to restore the environment and still make it economically profitable.
And those who don't read Finnish can go also to our website. There's a story about the same company, MLR.
Excellent, very good. So we'll all do it after this event. So anybody else, Kati, wanted to say something about this aspect?
Yeah. I just want to add that, for example, FFD has this FFD Hope, one of these compensation possibilities. But also in Finland, MTK has been active to be involved in the development of the compensation methods, which really benefit the farmers, and the result really comes to the farmer or forest owner level, because that's, I think that's where we have to be quite critical, that when seeing some kind of, for example, compensation methods or mechanisms, to see that is it really working and is it really going to the grassroots level.
Good. And then Kastri, please.
Okay, thanks. When you look at it generally, you find that the carbon credits, one way or another, is excluding the smallholders and it's favoring the big companies. And this is in different ways. For instance, the costs involved for smallholders to be registered, the technical know-how engaged, the monitoring costs that are involved, it seems to the smallholders to be, at the end of the day, it will not give them a return, an expected return. Instead, they will use a lot of money to get registered, to get the consultants to help them to develop all the required conditions and to do the monitoring, and finally, sometimes even before they get registered, they find themselves already tired and they give up. Mm. So we need also to see, as she just said, the mechanisms that are favorable to smallholders, that probably when we devise things, putting the big fish and the small fish in one basket, then always the big fish will eat the small fish. Mm. And we find that the smallholders they do not benefit as it was thought to be in the beginning and in the formulation of these things. Mm. So the other thing is this can be on country-wise situation. Most of the countries has found that carbon credits is also a source of income for them, revenues. So they have developed policies that do not favor also the smallholders, but they favor the big companies. The smallholders are also in trouble because at high level, worldwide, they are not part of it, though they are considered to be the beneficiary of it. At the country level, you find the policies also, they are not in favor of the smallholders, and they are not more inclusive, taking into account different groups of the forest owners, the disabled, the women, and other groups. So you find them, they stay aside looking what is happening in the ground. They are not the players of the thing itself. So unless things are changed, the way I see now, farmers, smallholders will continue not to benefit from the carbon credits.
That's very sad news to hear from you, and I think that we really have to try to work together to find solutions to that. I mean, the transaction costs probably quite high there for the farmers to cover all those costs. And when we talk about really small acreage of land that they can contribute to these schemes, but would it the farmers' organizations be forest owners' organizations be a solution here somehow, or the cooperatives so that they could bring farmers, smallholders together and then act as a kind of a middleman.
Definitely, I think it's crucial to have the farmers and forest owners organization and cooperatives as an active actors here, and really bringing the voice of farmers and the grassroots level voice to these discussions. I think it's the only way to guarantee that it's like a mechanism which takes the grassroots level in, and the benefit comes to the farmers and forest owners.
Yeah. Good to hear. Did you wanted to add something else?
No, I just wanted to say, in the case of our work, we have sort of found that carbon compensation seems to be difficult for that very purpose because of the fact that it is not usually intended, or rather it's not necessarily directed towards the local level, the smallholder farmer. It tends to be this sort of abstract global system. And for that reason, since we do support the very, very earliest stages of setting up a business, it becomes quite difficult to actually engage in carbon compensation sometimes. We do have some very good cases where that has occurred, where, for instance, we have a company that we finance that produces sunglasses in Kenya, and they do carbon compensation for their products locally. So it does happen, even at a very early stage. Mind you, they've been in operations for, 2-3 years, I think, something like that. So it is possible to sort of bake that into your business model and then sell those products in the Finnish market. But it is not easy. It is also very complicated. And we have to understand that of the companies that we have financed, not very many of those businesses would necessarily understand what carbon compensation even means, honestly, because it is a very specialized topic. So making that more accessible, and I think that's where FFD has also done a very good job in actually, being one more organization doing actual, verifiable work in that field. So yeah.
Thank you. Anybody among the audience that would like to comment or raise a question? Now I think it's the time. I can see 2 hands up already. Ladies first, so I give the floor to Nora. I don't know where the microphone is at the moment, but maybe.
Checking if it works. Yes, good.
Thank you very much. I think as the panel is called Reflections on the Future Path, and there is so much know-how all along the table now from the sectors of agriculture and forestry, I have to ask you that would you briefly comment that what is, in a short term now in near future, a growing trend or trending topic in the field of responsibility and sustainability in the sector of agriculture and forestry? Thank you.
Thank you. We will take the other question, and then I give the floor to the panelists.
Fred Stoddard, University of Helsinki, crop scientist. Sustainability to a crop scientist is a moving target. Every year, the science moves along. Anne mentioned how the stack of paperwork also moves along, and I didn't know that there was that aspect to it as well. So my question is about whether the certification or labeling of sustainability is at risk of becoming about the label rather than about the sustainability. Can the labeling keep up with, at least a couple of years behind, the science? Or do we just have a new brand that the consumer has to decide, well, do I believe it or not?
Yeah, 2 very tricky questions. So, who would like to start with this question of what is trending in the near future in the field of sustainability and responsibility? Elis, please.
Yeah, maybe one thing that is certainly trending, I think, is that the legal environment is changing. On the EU level, for instance, especially now talking about import of agricultural products and forestry products as well, the legal environment is changing. Previously, obviously it's becoming a lot more stringent for large enterprises, but even for SMEs, it's becoming very complicated sometimes to navigate. And we do a lot of work in actually trying to inform our clients about that. The fact that you need to look up these changes now, and you have to start baking them into your business model, because it's never going to get easier afterwards. It's always going to get more stringent, most likely. So that would be certainly a trend that we see, and also one that SMEs find very difficult, where we try to help them, of course, as well.
Yeah, Kati, you wanted to add?
Yeah, there are a lot of happening in sustainability, but I would also add food security. I think there are so many cases globally, this food security, and even in Europe it's now a hot topic. Not to mention in for example, in Africa, where it has been a long time. But I think that due to the many logistical crises we have had recently, during the recent years, I think that in the sustainability, the local food systems, the developing of the local food systems, that they are resilient, and there are local farms, local value chains to produce food for the local people. It will be even more important in the near future than it has been previously. And to the other questions, I want to add that this is really, really, really important thing to notice, that yes, in sustainability, it's not a black and white. It's not like a clear line whether you are sustainable or you are not sustainable. But there are multiple dimensions. And as mentioned, that science develops all the time, and also the practices in farm level changes all the time. So it's not an easy topic to say that, okay, you are sustainable, but you are not. But it can be, and there are different routes to sustainable production.
Yeah, I understand this question also, that we established a labeling system, sustainability labeling, for example, and we have certain requirements for that, certain standards that have to be met. But these standards, once we get that system up and running, these standards, they change.
Exactly.
Because there will be more information, more knowledge, more results from research.
Yeah.
And then they change, and we have just learned to use that one certificate or that one label. And so how do we deal with that?
Maybe I'll just continue. Yeah, I can confirm what Elis said, is that the legal requirements, they are there now, and what happens in EU has great implications all over. I once asked in one conference that, has anyone actually estimated the price cost that all the requirements coming from EU sustainability legislation, how will they influence the end price for a consumer? Nobody knows. But in my bubble, in the DFI, Development Financing Institute world, I think what is very much emerging is then the nature and biodiversity topic. We've been discussing a lot here about climate, but those two crises, they are already very much on our agenda, and the financiers are trying to get a grip of the topic. It's even more complicated than climate. Climate has been for financiers, and how it took 20 years to get where we are now with the climate, and we should be much quicker with the nature and biodiversity. So there's a lot of going on there, and this MLR example from Nicaragua is actually our way of trying to combine those two critical sustainability topics. So that is what's happening, and maybe something that's very much linked also to smallholder farmers is also then the adaptation part, because that's what we are seeing now in our agri investments, that the climate shocks are hitting hard the companies, and those relying on smallholder supply chains are actually at great risk, because smallholders are not that prepared to the risks that are emerging.
I want to ask the organizers how much time we still have. 10 minutes, okay. So we can have maybe one more question from the audience, if any. I can see a hand there. Please give the microphone to Mariatta.
Yes, hello. I'm Marjatta Seläniemi from E2 Research. I think this is merely maybe a comment to the sustainability issue, and can we have a label? I also think that maybe, labeling something is maybe not the solution, but we could say that it's important to talk about the sustainability, like it's important to talk about the, for example, just transition to more climate-friendly and equal labor rights society and food systems. So I think that we should not only think about the target of perfect sustainability, but we should think about that the journey there, and that we talk about it and we discuss and we develop along the way is as important. And just a small note that in Finland we have now done it's like a just transition tool. It's done by a research program called Just Food, funded by the Finnish Academy. You will find it in the reiluustyökalu.fi. It's now only in Finnish, but it will also be in English, and it's meant for companies and actors for self-adjustment of just transition and sustainability issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjatta, for that. Anybody wants still to elaborate this issue on labeling? Kasturi, have you come across with that in your work, in your current work, or in your previous work, or labeling all these different certificates? Have you got any experience on those?
My experience is we are developing many labels and certificates, and we are not sure how these are going to affect those who are going to abide to those, and for those who are going to the beneficiaries, because we are putting many labels and certificates. The costs of those they are not really stipulated. Yeah.
Thank you. So you have come across with this kind of jungle of all these different labels and certificates, and then which one to pick and advance. It's a major issue and question when thinking about the price tag, for example. So Anne, please.
Yeah, as a financier, we are actually also using those labels, those certificates as a tool, because we can't be there on the ground ourselves all the time. We do monitor, we visit sometimes, but we also use the certifiers as a kind of a third party giving an opinion that are the practices really applied sustainable, and they can do it in a much more thorough manner than we can with our small resources as a FinFund. So in that sense, it serves also a financier. The problem, of course, is that then who pays the cost for that our good night's sleep, in that sense that we can claim that we are sustainable. But we try to choose, we have selected a handful of certificates, the labels, which we tend to also think that they serve the market as well, that there's also that price premium coming from that certificate. So we try to be very selective. And as a positive note, I would say that many labels have recently actually worked towards more kind of applicable systems for smallholders, taking into better consideration also the smallholder limitations in accessing the schemes. And maybe this is just wishful thinking, but I hope that also the technological advancements, the artificial intelligence, and also improving georeference data could then help even more, building even better and more efficient systems that could serve also smallholders. So yeah, it's not an easy one, and I don't think that they are kind of a long-term solutions, those certificates, but at least now companies who are operating on export markets for EU, for example, certificate is actually also a safety net in that sense that they have something they can how they can demonstrate that they are actually sustainable. Because we are also operating with companies which have products that are on the list, so it's a must, I would say, in some cases.
Just a quick one, and then I give you a chance for your kind of a last concluding comment. But
yeah, maybe we already a little bit touched upon this question of who should pay for the certification. Where does the burden of the cost actually lie? Where should it lie? And I can gladly say that a part of the cost burden can lie with us, with Finn Partnership, with our business partnership support financing, because if you have a Finnish company that is seeking to cooperate with a local farmers organization, smallholder farmers organization, and you need that type of certification, we can actually pay for part of that certification, and hence the burden of proof in terms of certification has actually moved up from the individual farmer, from the farmers organization, up the value chain as it should be. So we would like to see more of those projects. If you have any good leads, please tell me. Honestly, we would like to see as many of those as possible.
Great. I had many other questions on my list, but the discussion has been so vibrant and so many views have been reflected that I thought I just let them speak because they have already answered to many of those questions that I didn't even ask. That were coming on my list. But I give the kind of a chance for a last concluding remark, and now we really try to look into the future. We have seen many problems. We have been discussing many problems that the smallholder farmers and forest producers that they face nowadays. But let's try to see some positive developments. What is positive? When we think about the next 10 years of FFD's work, FFD has now 10 years of work behind, 10 years ahead of us. What positive is going to happen during the next 10 years? Who would like to start? Are there any new innovations that look very prominent? Is something happening in our societies and in the planet that puts more value to smallholder farmers and forest producers' work? What's going to happen? Let's look at the next 10 years. And Kati wanted to start.
Yeah, I want to start from the perspective of farmer organizations. I think nowadays when we have more ways to communicate and go over different kind of time zones or whatever like distances, I think that having more and more cooperation between farmer organizations from different countries, it really is valuable, and it strengthens the family farmers and forest owners' voice globally. But it's also in our responsibility in the farmer organizations, in national level, but also in global level, in international level, that we have to prove that we are strong, we are reliable, we are democratic, we listen to each other, we interact, and also the positions are made together in a sustainable perspective, so that we think of future, not only today's needs. So I think this is really prominent, and I have felt in the World Farmers Organization that we have been improving so much interaction and understanding each other throughout the years what I have been working in international fora. So that's really prominent, and I think that in many platforms, farmers' voice, they want to hear it, and it's respected. And that's also in our responsibility, that what kind of message we share.
Thank you so much. Elis?
In terms of future trends, in terms of innovations, I hesitate to say that we would be the innovators, because usually the donor side is not where the innovations necessarily come from. We are reactive to that change. We are facilitators of that change. But in our case, for instance, I certainly think that the innovations come from the local partners and from our clients. In terms of our projects, that is. What we need to do is, of course, continue the information services related to this work, sustainability work that we've we've already been doing quite a bit of, and the support services we do. But I think I would love to see more projects where companies work directly with NGOs, with organizations like FFD. As a proud alumnus of FFD, I see the knowledge and information that is present there, and which is not present in a lot of private sector businesses. So I would love that information sharing to continue and become more deep in the future. And also I would love to see more projects that deal holistically with the whole value chain, and import projects especially. Those are usually the ones where there can be a lot of impact to different stages of the whole process. So those are maybe my two pet peeves that I would love to see more. Yeah, I think the innovations come from those actors seeking to make change and come up with new novel solutions. And the private sector is very active in that. And there is a lot of capital there to be mobilized. And we try to facilitate the mobilization of that capital. But I think the true innovations come there. No question about that.
Thanks a lot. What about Kasturi? What positive do you think that we will see during the next 10 years? What positive development?
I see that for the farmers to produce commercially, there is no way that they can escape from the reality of the requirements of the market. That for them to sustain their commercial production and their livelihood, they have to make sure that they meet the requirements of the market. Otherwise, they will not do business. And the other thing that I see is that the farmers' organizations are growing and becoming stronger, and becomes the good link between the producers and the buyers. And they are providing their crucial role of service to their members.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very valuable statement. And Anne, would you like to still...
Okay, you're asking me to become philosophical, right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I think that a human being is a very creative, innovative creature. But that creativeness tends to truly flourish when there's a crisis on. We have many of them. So I hope, for my children's sake, that there will be many kind of innovations. They are there bubbling under. We just need to find them and scale them up. So yes, I think it will happen. And the positive sign of that is already that sustainability is becoming mainstream. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's trying to figure out what it is. And then in the longer run, I hope that we will see the signs already in next 10 years. I hope that any investment made is not measured only with financial success and terms and the financial return, but also the other benefits, other gains will be measured and integrated into any investment we make. We consider all aspects, not only money.
Thank you so much. I think we will give a big hand to the panelists. Thank you very much, Kati, Elis, Kasturi, and Anne. I would have continued for hours and hours, but we have certain time limits. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is this on? Maybe not yet. Now. Yes, thank you, Kaisa, and all panelists for a great panel discussion. I wanted to say a couple. Sorry. Aha, kuuluuko nyt? So we go again. So thank you, Kaisa, and all the panelists for a great panel discussion. One thing that I wanted to mention still is that we have the FFD 10th year anniversary publication, which you probably have seen. You can find it as a hard copy over there on the tables. And please take one with you home. You can find it in both English and in Finnish, and also then online through FFD's webpage. It looks like this. So, and thank you to the whole team working with the publication. So, before the closing remark, we have a little surprise, as you should have during celebrations. So please welcome President of FFD, Juha Marttila again.
Don't be afraid, I'm not singing. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, you cannot find this part in the program. This is real surprise. We are representing the central organization, Central Union of Agricultural Producers and Forest Owners in Finland, MTK, as mentioned. And our organization, MTK, has a very long tradition of rewarding hard-working people by honorary, what's the English name? It's not a pin. Pledge. It must be pledge. Honorary pledge. And I have a pleasure to tell that our board has decided to grant this honor to you, Tiina. This has been, as I said, 10 years of hard work, but not only hard work, but also as mentioned in criteria of this reward, it has been work for the values of MTK and the purposes of MTK. And when we are talking about the values of MTK, responsibility is one of the values. And your work, the responsibility has been always present, and we are not talking just about the responsibility of our own work, but this is real global responsibility. Thank you very much, Tiina, and congratulations. No, pistä pois. Otatko kuule? Ottakaa joku valokuva. Kukat. On vielä halaukset. Ottakaa nyt valokuva.
Paljon kiitoksia MTKlle. I really want to thank MTK. I have to say, when I was studying environmental sciences in the East, in the University of Eastern Finland, I didn't think that it would be MTK who is rewarding me, but this is great. And I hope that I have brought also something to MTK as an organization, to the building. At least we've had some exotic visitors and even staff members. But I have to say, my work is so much thanks to my fantastic team and all our fantastic partners. This goes to you.
Thank you. And so our 10th year anniversary seminar is coming to an end. And last but not least, we'll give the floor to Associate Vice President of the External Relations and Governance Department of IFED, Satu Santala, for closing remarks.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of IFAD, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, and on my own behalf, I want to first of all congratulate FFD very warmly on your 10th anniversary, and of course congratulations Tina for this award that's very well deserved. I know that everyone's already waiting for a wonderful evening, so I'll be brief. But it's been a really inspiring seminar and a lot of food for thought. So I had some pre-written remarks that I'm kind of going to be mainly ignoring and maybe reflecting a little bit on the conversations here today. I do want to start with the global context that Tina also spoke to us about, and I know that we're all following what is happening in the world, and we are doing so with concern. And obviously the world is not in a good place, in particular for those of us who care about sustainable development and people and the planet. And we are seeing very stark figures on hunger and poverty. In the year 22, 2.4 billion people did not have reliable access to nutritious, safe and sufficient food. That's not acceptable. We cannot be, in this day and age, be living in a world that has these figures. And we all know the contributing factors. Tina also spoke about them in terms of the COVID pandemic, the wars and conflicts, climate change. I think Castor said it well. We're all dancing to the music of climate change in our everyday lives. But also, the reason why we repeatedly come to these food crises is also decades of underinvestment in agricultural development and rural communities. So today's context is reminding us that indeed we need to do something. We do need to do something differently, and we need to speed up. We've heard a lot today about smallholders, small producers, and farmer organizations. And I just wanted to, I know everyone in this room thinks so, but I just wanted to remind us why these people, these communities are important. In many developing countries, most of the food, 70–80% of the food consumed is produced by smallholders. So by not investing in them, it would be stupid, because that's where the food comes from. But that's also where a big part of the jobs come from, or livelihoods come from. And we know that 2/3 of the people living in extreme poverty globally are in rural areas. So the very people who produce the food, or either different roles along the value chain, are also the same ones who are extremely vulnerable and often suffer from hunger and poverty themselves. And today we've heard also about the issues with how much income does a producer make in terms of the price and so on. But a lot of this is why it's important to focus on smallholder farmers, on rural people. On the other hand, and I'm really encouraged today that this was not a seminar that was full of doom and gloom. Quite on the contrary, I do think that we're all seeing that there are lots of things that can be done, and there's hope. And we do know that by investments in food systems have a really big potential for increased incomes, for creating a huge number of jobs, and also for managing our fragile ecosystems and achieving our climate goals We just have to do it. So there's a lot of potential there. And you know, in my job, I'm part of a lot of global conversations, and I am seeing a momentum this time much more than maybe some years ago, and a bigger recognition for the need to invest in food systems, in rural people, and so on. And I think that's a real opportunity for all of us to grapple right now. Yeah, I won't go more in detail into that. But then we heard a lot about farmer organizations today, and I really want to underline the role of farmer organizations. You know, I work for IFAD, which is a UN international fund for agricultural development. So we work with our member states in the developing world in building and implementing programs with rural communities, with farmers, and oftentimes, very often, work with farmer organizations. And we see firsthand the critical role that they play in many, and we've heard about the many different roles that they play in providers of services, leaders of advocacy and change, nationally, regionally, globally, and in innovation. And the many different roles, and this is very important, because oftentimes, of course, you know, individual farmers, especially in remote rural areas, it's very difficult for them to access many of these either financing or other services without such support structures. And an important element that came out really well today in the conversation as well is the role that farmer organizations play in building inclusive societies, democracy, and empowering people and communities, and linking them up with national and global structures. And that's a really important element that I wanted to underline, because oftentimes it's kind of forgotten a little bit. We talk about maybe more of the livelihood side and so on, but it is something that we see firsthand in our work. And we're very proud to be working with farmer organizations, both in our operations, but also we host every 2 years a farmers forum that also is one of these mechanisms of bringing farmer organizations together and giving them or supporting with their voice. Then I made so many notes that I'm trying to figure out what more to say. Yes, so then the other aspect that I really appreciated in the conversation before is the many requirements and the many demands that come with the changing world. And we all want more sustainability, we all want more responsibility, we want the value chains to be transparent and so on, but it is difficult to do. And especially it's difficult to do for smallholder farmers in the developing world and farmer organizations. And there's a lot of, it's a challenging field. Obviously, this is the way we're going, and I think that's where building the capacity of farmer organizations, and then for example, the collaboration IFAD and farmer organizations have is important in sort of building those steps of where we kind of are able to link the individual farmers to these bigger structures and help them comply with very challenging demands. And I think that's just something that doesn't, yeah, it's a difficult one, but we did hear, I think, good examples of how that work can be done further. And then finally, just to reflect that that I leave this seminar with a sense of hope, with a sense of, you know, so many things that we can do for a better world going forward, and I think we just need to kind of hold on to that and persist. I heard a lot about solutions, and of course there are many more solutions that we know about, and it's important to kind of foster them, help scale up, and help them also spread information about solutions that work. so that they can be replicated. And we heard a lot about people who can make that change and who are making that change. And I think that's, at least for me, one of the main thoughts, that it is always people who can make change, and that we need to remember and work in a way that empowers people and communities. And then cooperation between farmer organizations, but also cooperation between different types of organizations, including the private sector, I think is a very important thought that we go away with. And then I was also really encouraged by having both FinFund and FinPartnership here, and I think seeing that the private sector is moving forward and the private sector is willing to engage with farmers, farmer organizations, and takes sustainability and responsibility seriously, I think that's an important trend that is already changing the world and will do so going forward. So finally, all this leaves me just with a very reinforced belief that investing in farmers, investing in rural people makes a lot of sense, and that we're already seeing that happen, and that trend is with us, and we just need to keep on reinforcing that trend. But thank you again, and again, happy birthday to FFD. Thank you.
So, thank you so much, Satu Santala, for those closing remarks. I think it summarizes very well what we have discussed today during the seminar. We want to thank all speakers and all participants, both here in the room and online, for being here with us today. And a big thank you also to all our supporters. You can see here, for example. And I want to give a special thanks also to Janita and to Matthias, and also to Tina, and to the whole FFD team and all the others who have helped with making this seminar come true. We would not be here without your help and support. So, before we leave, I think we could take a group picture. So, our photographer, Frida, will tell us what to do, and thank you again.